So I'll be demonstrating a couple of chair postures that would fall into the category of supported Hatha Yoga postures. And these postures can be done more or less anytime, anywhere that you find yourself in a chair. Uh, that if you do feel called to incorporate a chair into your existing yoga practice or asana practice, that's a wonderful option. It's certainly not the only way, however, to incorporate these poses. There's, whether you're in an office or in a waiting room or on an airplane or anywhere else that you find yourself in a chair for a prolonged period of time, this can be a really useful way to help decompress, generally just relieve stress and also relieve tension and release energy in the spine and the neck and shoulders and release that energy up to the brain so we have more clear thinking, and overall central to yoga is better breathing, so we'll emphasize the breath as we practice. So without further ado, let's begin. So I'm just going to stand up and carry the chair over to the mat just for the purpose of demonstration. So you're welcome to follow along at your own pace. Generally, these postures can be done seated on the floor as well, but this will give a different perspective on not only the ways that you can perform postures, but who can perform these postures and how and when that they can integrate into our modern daily life. So our first posture will be just to raise our arms up over our head and just bring our palms together up over the head. We sometimes experience tension in the neck and shoulders. So just doing our best to take a few deep breaths here initially, just to relax the shoulder blades down and back to find a better positioning of the shoulders. And doing our best to press the palms together, not just the fingers or the fingertips, but really doing our best to engage the muscles of the arms and the shoulders, the rib cage, the back, to help press those palms together. If this isn't happening for you today, that's quite all right. You can also, if it's ever too intense, bring the hands to the heart, press the hands together at the heart. This serves a similar function of just connecting the two sides of the body and remembering to take really strong, deep breaths here. That once again, we're not so much concerned about how it looks as what this is doing for the body and our ability to relax and really activate those mechanisms that bring us back into balance or homeostasis. So a lot of this is more about the changing the internal state than the way that it looks. So next, we'll just reach for our knees, placing our hands on our knees just like this. We'll place our feet more or less about at a 90-degree angle so that our knees, our legs are at a 90-degree angle, and so are our ankles. And if you're sitting in a chair, you may need to raise or lower the chair, or perhaps prop yourself up with pillows. But generally, you want your hips to be about the height of the knees or slightly higher than the knees. Right now, you'll see my hips are actually slightly lower than my knees, which is all right for demonstrating and if you don't have any issues with your hips. But if there is any discomfort or anything, raising the seat up a little bit so that the angle in the knees is a little bit less intense can help with generally feeling comfortable sitting in a chair overall. And sitting for prolonged periods of time, while it's common to modern culture, we often are not trained to sit still for long periods of time without external stimulation, and so this can help us with that. So we'll move into our forward fold. Here we're just hinging at the hips first, so keeping our spine straight. You can use your hands to support your upper back, especially as you hinge forward, keeping the core engaged and just maintaining that flow of breath, especially into the lower back and the belly. And pausing here to take a deep breath as you find that first point of resistance. And then When you're ready, you can start to slide the hands down the legs, maintain that point of contact wherever it is with the hands and the lower body. If your hands stay on the knees, that's fine. If your hands reach all the way to your feet or the bottoms of your feet, or hook the first two fingers around the big toes, creating what's called a mudra or an energy lock. Either way, finding that connection point with the upper body and the lower body, the hands, and somewhere on the legs or the feet. Then inhaling, rounding the spine here, exhaling, lowering a little bit more into this posture. But just remembering to stay active with your breath, to keep your eyes focused on a single point, perhaps just on a point in front of your big toes, so that you're generally looking towards the floor, kind of looking where you want your head to go. Our goal is to get our head towards our toes, closer to our toes. And so we're just slowly allowing the muscles of the spine to relax here. Like we said, emphasizing the lower back, and breathing into the lower back allows us to release those muscles that are often overused just due to sedentary society. Our core muscles can tend to get weaker, and therefore this impacts digestion as well as elimination, and we can help release and reverse a lot of that negative spiral that is so common to our modern culture by just taking a few deep breaths and relaxing and releasing the muscles of the hips, the hamstrings, the lower spine, and even the neck and shoulders. So that's all that we're doing here. It's just relaxing, breathing, and releasing. So take another deep breath. Exhale. On the inhale, we'll press ourselves up. Inhaling up nice and tall here. And just sitting still for a moment. You can tuck the chin to keep yourself from getting lightheaded. And just relax for a moment. And we can bring our arms out by the sides, just relaxing them towards the floor. We'll exhale, then inhale the arms up overhead. And this time, reaching back into a gentle back bend. If your chair does have a backrest, you can use the back of the chair to support, but as you can see here, I'm not using the back of my chair just to demonstrate how to do this if you just happen to be sitting on a bench or a stool or something like that. But if you do have a backrest to your chair, you can use the back of the chair to support your back bend. First, just gently without overextending any areas of the spine, just finding, once again, that first point of resistance in the spine. And what I mean by this is generally in the chain of muscles or bones and ligaments and tissues, we have a chain that reaches from the head to the toes, for example, along the back side of the body. This is called our posterior chain. And these are chains of what's called fascia, and the fascia create what's called the myofascial meridians in the body, which one might say is sort of similar or connected somehow to the acupuncture meridians that are used in traditional Chinese medicine. Now, as we're focused on this posterior chain, or this connection between our, technically not just our toes, but our Achilles heel, all the way up through the backs of the legs, the calves, the thighs, the glutes, the lower back, including the sciatic, and moving up the spine through all the spinal erectors and into the neck and shoulders, we can see how there's areas that either undercompensate or overcompensate. And so as we release the spine here, we're focusing on maintaining a natural arch in the spine so that we're not overextending anywhere, say in the middle back or lower back, by arching the back too much. We're actually doing our best to engage the abdominal muscles and draw the rib cage down from the front side, while at the same time releasing and opening the shoulders, the neck, and the back from the heart, staying strong in our core, allowing that arch in the lower back and the middle back to engage, but not overextending anywhere. So we're just allowing this back bend to happen naturally as it does. And when you're ready, you can start to bring your head and your neck into it. Be focusing on just lifting the heart here now. Relaxing the head back without creating too much excess tension on the neck and shoulders, making sure that our head is relaxed but not excessively tense, that we're protecting the muscles behind the neck, and just relaxing back, taking deep, full breaths, everything with deep, full, slow, even, relaxed breaths. Then we'll inhale, coming up back to center. You can sit up tall for a moment. Exhale, the hands back to the heart center. And release the hands onto the legs or just fold them in your lap. So we've covered our forward fold and our back bend, and generally sitting up with a comfortable seated posture. So now we'll just transition to twisting from side to side. So if you have a chair that has armrests, you can use the armrest or you can use the back of the chair, but that's also not necessary, as like I said, many of these poses were developed to be seated floor poses that did not have a chair or anything. But if you are going to do supported yoga postures, you may as well use the chair. And you can do this first just by knowing how to leverage your body, and then we can use the chair. But when you're in a twist, essentially you're just allowing the body to move one vertebrae at a time, using your breath to guide the twisting. So with every inhale, you're lengthening the spine, and then with every exhale, you're twisting a little bit deeper. So just think of that as you're in your twist. With every inhale, you're lengthening the spine. With every exhale, you're twisting a little bit deeper. So this helps us coordinate the breath with the movement, even when we kind of look like we're still and we're going through more of these micro movements. So here, this is just once again twisting over to our left side and finding that first point of resistance. Like I said, I'm not going to use the chair. So first you can place one hand on your hip, your left hand on your left hip, your right hand on the outside of your left knee, and you can just start the twist from here. If you like, and the chair's in the way, you can always just use the chair to support the twist like I'm doing. Just placing your arm around the back of the chair and then grabbing that left side of the chair with your left hand. To open up the chest, as you twist, keep that right arm, the right shoulder blade back. So kind of drawing that right shoulder back. So you're squeezing the shoulder back so that your right shoulder is opening, right chest is opening as you're twisting over to the left side. So then once again, I'm just going to bring my hand to support my lower back. This is another really simple way to engage with this twist, is to just keep the hand of the side that you're twisting towards. So in this case, I'm twisting toward the left hand is pressed against the sacrum, the lower back. So this helps just in kind of raising that lower spine area and helping just maintain awareness in the lower back. And then, like I said, inhaling, lengthening the spine, exhaling, going a little bit deeper in the twist. You can sort of think of it as three main areas. You have your lower belly, your abdomen, your chest, and then your neck and shoulders. So we have our trunk, our chest, and our neck and shoulders. It's three areas. So we first twist from that lower abdomen, then the chest, and then finally the neck and shoulders. And then release, exhaling slowly back to our center. Once again, just finding that space of stillness and calmness. And then preparing for the other side, we're just twisting over to the side. We're looking over first straight out to the side, say 90 degrees from our initial forward-facing pose or view, before extending to look over our shoulder so that this total rotation from the front maxes out perhaps around 180 degrees. Depending on the person, of course, some of us may be closer to 90, some of us may reach more like an owl and reach a full 360. But if you're doing your best to just look over your shoulder and maintain that natural twist in the spine through each individual vertebrae as you inhale, lengthen the spine, exhale, twist and release. These are the main focus points. We're not so much focused about how it looks, so much as having proper form and maintaining positive outlook and attitude. So we're going to release back to center. Once again, at our simple seated posture, just seeing if we've observed any changes in our breathing or in the way that our muscles or the body feels, or just in our state of mind and how we are present to our experience. So now we'll cross one leg over the other in a simple supported pigeon pose. So this seems like one of the most obvious things you could do when you're sitting in a chair. When you're on the floor, there's many different variations of pigeon pose, also sometimes called figure four, especially if you're laying on your back. But in the chair, we have the opportunity to leverage the chair and leverage the mechanical forces and pressures that our body is in when we're in the seated chair position. That helps us move in this posture in a biomechanically advantaged way. So, simply put, we're able to keep our spine straight as we're sitting up tall without having too much resistance on the leg. Of course, for many of us, this can already be a little intense, and so just getting to this point is enough. And if that is you, then finding a position that's more comfortable can be something like sticking the foot out further, even bringing the knees closer together so that instead of having in this case, the right ankle resting more or less directly on top of the left knee, it's more like somewhere along the outside of the right calf, closer to the right knee, is resting on top of the left knee with that left foot slid out a little bit further. But if this is agreeable to you, then having that left ankle or the right ankle on top of the left knee, and then just sitting up tall and starting to hinge forward at the hips, and then finding that first point of resistance. And then once again, similar to what we did in our forward fold, is first hinging at the hips, keeping the spine straight, and then rounding the spine. So we have these two sort of phases of releasing into a posture, and usually the rounding can also go in two phases, where first we round from the lower and middle spine, and then we finally round at the upper spine, or especially the head and the neck. So over here you can place your hands somewhere on your leg, somewhere on the knee, perhaps. Just finding this point of resistance and breathing into it. Usually it's in the hips and the glutes. Just going where you feel something that's beneficial and pleasurable in some way. This can be a sign that we're releasing in a way that's beneficial to us. The saying, no pain, no gain, has kind of lost a lot of its power. Another way of looking at it is pleasure is treasure. But enjoy releasing, enjoy the process of releasing. That there's a certain strangeness to the thing that is discomforting yet feels good at the same time. That this feeling of a stretch, it's like it feels good when it's done, but while you're in it, you're like, as long as I'm doing it right, There's what you might say is a good stretch. When you know you're getting a good stretch, it's different than finding pain or discomfort. So doing your best to find that space rather than forcing yourself into positions you don't really need to be in. And this is a metaphor for life, of course. So we'll switch to the other side, and we'll just find our space on this calf, or of this glute, where our now left ankle is resting on top of the right knee. I'm just sitting up tall here, and just releasing from this posture of just sitting up tall. If you do find there is excessive tension or anything like that in the hips, it really does help to sit up tall and to breathe, breathing with dignity, breathing with determination, diligence. And hinging at the hip, just starting that hinging process. Just realizing that that motion is probably not as big as it needs to be, or maybe a better way to say that is, it's not as, it may feel bigger than it looks, if that makes sense. So what might feel like a lot of movement in the body corresponds to, on the outward, ends up looking like a micro movement. And at the same time, that's what you're really looking for, is to just have that micro awareness and awareness of how our muscles and our fascia all release gradually rather than just with brute force and willpower. There's a different way to channel our willpower so that we are patient, and that this gives us a much more long-term, little by little, step-by-step approach that in many ways is more effective than trying to hack away at something and then getting burnt out. And once again, the metaphors in life are abounding. So we'll start to just round the spine now. Once again, connecting the hands onto the lower body, creating that energetic circuit, and then tucking the chin. And just rounding the upper back as well here. Resting here, taking a few deep breaths into that hip, lower back, glute, and hamstring area. And just releasing the spine. With an inhale, you can come up. And release that left leg slowly back to your mat. So now we'll move our way onto the floor just for a final rest. So we'll stand up. When you're standing up, you can always support the lower back with a gentle back bend, basically just pressing the hands into the spine just above the glutes, finding that little crest of the sacrum where you can press into, and just inhale, squeeze the glutes, really breathe into that lower belly as you look up. And just find a little bit more space in your spine, your neck, and your shoulders. And we're going to exhale. And we'll slowly make our way to the floor. I'm going to move this chair just a little bit so I have room for my legs. And so once you're on the floor, you can scoot about 6 to 8 inches away from the chair, and then place your feet up on the chair as you scoot yourself in a little bit closer, wherever's comfortable for you. And then finding this comfortable position, laying flat on the back. This can help allow the spine to reset in a way that's different than just laying flat on the floor. For many of us, we find that releasing the spine really is worthwhile, and it's worth going the extra mile in a yoga practice or physical therapy or anything training wise to help release the lower back and the spine in for a number of reasons. In Chinese medicine, there's what's called the lower dantian, and the lower dantian is just the reservoir of energy that's stored at the base of the spine, essentially in our center of gravity. And that this is said where the most potent energy of ours is stored, and of course it's where our reproductive organs are. We still have, generally our vital organs, extend into that area too. We have our spine, the base of our spine, said in the Indian traditions to store the Kundalini energy, and that the raising of Kundalini energy is essentially the bringing up of the energy in the nervous system, or even the energy that's in the spinal cord at the center of our vertebrae, what's called the cerebrospinal fluid, that is the storehouse for our neurotransmitters and hormones. So cerebrospinal fluid carries these essential messengers and signaling processes throughout the body, and it's like the central storage mechanism of the central nervous system. So as we tune into this central spine region and find its root at the base of the spine and its apex at the top of the spine, or even in the brain, but especially where the spine meets the brain at the brainstem, we help release all this tension in the whole spine. But starting with the lower spine, we can feel that perhaps if we lay flat on the ground without the chair, the spine arches naturally in the lower back. But when we have our legs lifted up on the chair, the spine is no longer doing this. The spine is generally flat on the floor. We've eliminated that bit of curve. And this can be helpful in just releasing any deeper tension that's stored in the spine first, before we try just laying flat on the ground. And also it can just help with taking nice, full, deep breaths. As you can see, we've basically maintained the posture of sitting in a chair, only now we're flat on the floor. So in many ways this can be very conducive if you are accustomed to sitting for long periods, that this can be a really relaxing way to release the spine. In addition, there are a few gentle stretches that one can practice from this posture. There's even a slightly more advanced pose that can be done from this position. And we'll go through that now, and then we'll just relax the spine in resting pose. But our more intense posture is essentially a supported version of a shoulder stand. And it's required more or less to grab the front two legs of the chair in order that the chair doesn't slide away from you unless you have somebody else supporting the chair. But if you grab the front two legs of the chair, you can place your feet against the edge of the chair and then start to lift from the glutes so that the feet are pressing into the chair, the hips are lifting up, and the spine is more or less straight, of course, with the exception of the bend of the neck. And this bend in the neck, it's important to maintain the vertical gaze, so don't turn the head side to side while you're in this posture, just to protect the neck. This can be beneficial for stimulating the thyroid gland. In addition, just releasing the muscles of the neck and the chest, and strengthening the glutes, and helping flush the lymph nodes with a gentle inversion can help benefit the immune system, as well as generally detoxifying and recirculating blood can help with a number of biological processes. One thing that most people notice immediately is that they get sleepy, and this indeed inversions can be very helpful if you do have any issues like insomnia or just trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. So you can relax once again, just with the legs on the chair. And I will demonstrate, we already did this posture sitting up, but just so that we have a point of reference, the figure 4 that I mentioned when we were in our seated pigeon pose, or figure 4, this is what figure 4 looks like if you are seated in the chair, or if you are laying with the chair. You can also interlace the fingers behind the leg like this. And the chair is not necessary, of course, but beneficial to mention that posture. So finally, we'll just bring our legs into our chest, or bring our knees into our chest, I should say, with our hands. Right hand on right knee, left hand on left knee. The knees don't have to be together, but if you feel called to interlace the fingers together and pull both knees in together and hug your knees into your chest, rocking the knees back and forth, you're welcome to do that. Otherwise, just keeping the knees separate and holding individually is quite all right. Now, depending on the chair that you have, you can see how it is to extend the legs a little bit higher on the chair. This may require holding those front 2 legs of the chair again, or just using the chair to help keep the legs vertical. And if you don't feel you need the chair, you can always just hold the legs individually or interlace the fingers once again behind the legs. Release the legs this way. So now, if you do feel comfortable laying flat on the floor, you can extend the legs completely, and you can just move the chair out of the way with your legs. You can also bend the knees with the feet flat on the floor. Having the legs up on the chair can be very relaxing and just as beneficial as a standard resting pose, but this is something that's common to Hatha Yoga, is that we have a resting pose at the end of our practice just for the sake of integrating the rest of our postures. So staying here for a minute or two and just releasing and relaxing the spine, focusing on the natural flow of the breath, just allowing all of our bones, muscles, sinews to release, relax, come back to their natural state of suppleness, energy, relaxation. And allowing the same to happen in our thinking process, coming back to a state of strength, flexibility, compassionate awareness in all situations. We'll just do our best to focus on bringing that deep relaxation that we experience here into the rest of our day, to really move from our center, to maintain that peace and stillness that we find at our center, and allow that to be the guide for the way that we move about, the way that we interact with the world. So I thank you all for practicing and for giving yourself the time and attention to try something new and to embody new spaces within yourself. So without further ado, I wish you a wonderful day and a blessed journey with your practice. Peace.